Harvey's Lounge, and I was 18 then. I said, well, I don't think I should go to Harvey's Lounge. Dropped me off at the A meeting in Fort Washington.
Right.
And I remember sitting in the room, and as I looked across the room, I seen these two drunks with their heads next to each other on this little couch sitting there, and I'm thinking, that's my dad.
Wow.
Now, this is 1976. I hadn't seen my father since 1968.
Really?
Wow.
So it was 8 years later. And I'm looking at my father, and I knew what kind of drunk he was, and I went over and I said, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he got up and he was crying and teary-eyed, and I've been looking for you. I said, well, we've been in the same house for the last 8 years up the street there. You didn't have to look very far.
Yeah.
And the other guy who was with, all my dad's drinking buddies were always my uncles.
Right.
I had more uncles than I could count.
Oh,
So him and Uncle Gene were like bombed out of their minds. And he got sober about a year later in 77.
Is that right?
And he stayed sober for 12 and a half years till he died of lung cancer in 1990.
Right.
He was 12 and a half years sober, 58 years old.
I remember
young.
that, yeah.
So there's been a lot of blessings, a lot of healings there.
Mm-hmm.
I hate being an orphan. My mom's gone. I really hate that my mom and dad are both gone, and I hate feeling like an orphan.
Yeah.
Getting older in AA.
Mm-hmm.
I love my family though. My
Yeah.
kids. My daughter's 23 and she's in her master's program for speech pathology.
Right.
She's going to graduate next year with her master's, and my son Tim is in.
Tim's an interesting story.
Yeah, Tim is an interesting story. Tim is adopted, my son.
Mm-hmm.
He came in 1993. Sue and I tried to have children for years and years, and we had a lot of miscarriages, a lot of misfortunes that way.
I remember all that. It was very painful.
Yeah, you were there when we went through a lot of that, and we decided to adopt. And when we went to adopt, we were in the process, and I came home from work, and Sue and I were trying to have a baby through in vitro fertilization, and we tried previous attempts, and it always failed. And guy in AA came to my house one day, and he said, "We want you and your wife to try this in vitro thing again." Now, I'm sharing some personal stuff here, and I hope you don't mind that.
No, go ahead.
A guy I met from Williamsport that came down, and I was his contact person. He came to me and he said, "My wife and I my business is doing booming." He said, "I want to pay for you and your wife to try this in vitro again." And I said,
Really?
"I can't take that kind of money, and we're kind of done with it. The emotional part, it's kind of hard for us."
Yeah, right.
But we did it. We did the in vitro, and again, from doing it multiple times, we thought it wasn't working, and we were going to a convention in the Poconos for a general service, and it was a Friday, and we were packing up, and we just had our blood test that day to see if we were pregnant or not. And I remember the phone rang, and my wife was in the back bedroom crying. She thought it didn't work, and this and that, and she was upset, and the phone rang, and it was a nurse, and she said, "I want to tell you have a positive pregnancy."
Really?
And I remember saying, "What?" My wife could tell by my tone of voice that something good happened, and we were crying, and we both went to the convention that weekend, and I got to speak at the God Eyes Understanding meeting and share that little, just how God works through AA and people and the whole thing there. And we had my daughter from that.
You must have been walking on clouds.
And we had to call the adoptions agency and put off our adoption. We were in the midst of adopting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we waited for like 3 or 4 years later when Catherine was about 3 or 4.
Right.
We went back into the adoption process, and we adopted Tim, who was from Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim came to us when he was 4 months old.
How about that?
In 1993.
Right.
And he's 19 now. He's a great kid.
I remember you telling me about, because you said something to me. Can you imagine if God's sense of humor? I was such a bigot like me, and he gives me a kid that's Asian.
If you like, I was like an Archie Bunker.
You were a total Archie Bunker.
That was my biggest fear. And even adoption is a big fear, But you know what? I think of my kids like they're both my children.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of all children. All children are adopted in some sense or another to you.
Right.
I only have Tim and Catherine for however long I have them to send them on their way.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever I can give them in life that they're going to be able to carry on is what I can do for them.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll tell you, my wife and I adopted a little boy about
16 years now, right?
Well, he's 15 now,
15.
and we got him when he was about 18 months old.
Okay.
And adopting a child is certainly an amazing journey.
Oh yeah.
And our son is Afro-American, and yet when I look at him, that is my son. That is my boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, I was going to fight one time because he didn't get thrown off the baseball team, but he didn't get accepted. I didn't realize they cut people.
Yeah, right.
Man, I was like ready to fist fight a couple baseball coaches because he didn't get on the baseball team. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And the guy picked.
I can really relate to that.
And the guy picked his kid with the school with rather than the kids on their talent. I felt, but I remember like really getting into that. Like,
yeah, defensive.
Oh yeah.
That's my boy. What are you doing? Yeah.
But my kids are great. My wife and I, on the way out, I forget, we weren't arguing on the way out, but what did she say? Something, we had some words. She said, give me a kiss. I said, no, you got onions on your breath. I'm not going to kiss you because I hate onions. So she came, and as I was going at the door, she turned and gave me a cheek instead of her lips. But, you know what I mean? It's great. Life is great. Yeah. It really is. I mean, I have turmoils in life. About a month ago, I was in I'm 30-some years sober, and I'm in a fist fight at work.
Oh, yeah? What was that about?
Did I tell you that story? A young guy in AA trying to give him a hand, trying to help him out.
All right.
Got him a job.
They're always a pain in the neck.
6 months sober.
He's got it all figured out.
But he had it all figured out, and I kept I guess I was browbeating him.
Right.
What are you doing? Do it this way. Do it that. I work construction.
Yeah, you were a concrete laborer for most of your life.
Yes.
I remember Pat's Pennies. Remember Pat's Pennies? Pat worked down Vine Street when they excavated. It was an amazing project back in the 80s. They excavated what was a vine and I forget what else, but it was canyons. They'd excavated out everything, gone down like 2 floors, put up all these retaining walls, and then they re-poured like the subway. And then Pat was doing the concrete. And you would, whenever you poured concrete, you'd take out pennies for that year, and at the corner of the pads of each intersection, you'd press a penny into it, and they were Pat's pennies. I remember you taking me down the city once. You'd take me all your favorite.
Show you any? Whenever they pour curbs, I'd always put a penny in there and brush off the top of it. So there's a bunch of pennies down in the curbs.
Yeah, 1983 or 4 or whatever it was. But you did a lot of concrete work for a lot of years.
I'm doing decks. I work for a company out of Malvern, and we do restoration work right now. I'm doing this parking garage deck repairs, and this guy, I'm like browbeating him all day long.
Oh, yeah.
He'd been with me for about a month or so. He came over and put his fingers in my face.
Uh-oh.
When you put your fingers in somebody's face and you ask them to get them out and they don't, I don't know where I come from. The fight has already started. So I shoved him to the. Now we're standing on a rebar mat, mind you. This rebar mat with number 5 and 6 heavy steel bars.
So you don't have good footing.
Not good footing. And I said, if you want to fight, let's go over in a concrete and fight. Well, I shove him to the ground. He tackles me. I get him in a headlock. Give him a couple of shots. He knocks me down. I whack my head. Got a scar on my head here.
36 years sober.
36 years sober. Then he's choking me and giving me rabbit punches, and I was a mess. Then he called my boss and told him, I beat him up, or I pushed him down. And
right.
My boss, I had 3 days off of work, and he says, this is the first time in 35 years of business we ever had a fight. And I said, no, it's not the first time you ever had a fight. It's the first time anybody ever called you and told you had a fight.
Yeah.
I said, let's clarify that. I said, because I've been here for 4 years from you, and I know there's been more fights than this one.
Right.
But I made my amends process, and I had to call the guy after a couple of days, and apologize for my action.
Right.
And typical 6 months sober, which I resented, was you better do something about your problem and this and that. And he had no intake on it was none of his fault, and I was fine with that. And it took me a while to get through that because, but my A thing tells me not to keep. I can't hold on to that kind of resentment or dislike of anybody. So I made my amends. We met at a coffee shop, and a couple of days later, and it was done with. I haven't seen the guy since, and I did my part. That's what AA tells me: to make amends for something if I harm someone. I'm not responsible for your part of the amends.
Right.
What I did wrong, and I admitted my wrong, and I moved on from that.
Right.
That's what I got from being sober. Now, if I wasn't sober, I would have just held on to resentment, probably went and blew his house up or something, or
and got blasted.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at in life. I'm
still a process.
I'm still working. I've been working 33 years now.
Right. I remember back in the 80s, you were contemplating going to school. You were thinking about being a lawyer or something, weren't you?
I would have liked to have been a lawyer. I would have been a good lawyer.
You're good at arguing.
If I would have been trained well, I left my 11th year of high school with bracelets on. They called me out in the hall. When I got in the hall, there was 2 detectives that grabbed me, put handcuffs on me, took me out of school.
Right.
So that was my last day of high school. And I'm part of my I've joined on Facebook my graduating class of '77.
Oh yeah,
even though I was taken to jail in '75.
Right.
But I still consider myself graduating.
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel the same way. I mean,
I had to wait to take my GED because I couldn't take a GED until my graduating class graduated.
Right.
And I took it and I passed the GED, and it was probably harder than most of the graduating classes test.
Yeah.
But I'm on Facebook as a graduate, even though I didn't get a diploma from the high school or any of that. And most of the things they want to do are related around bars, and there might be a couple of them listening tonight.
Right.
If they looked on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So, I enjoy that.
Yeah.
I'm also on Facebook with some of my people from St. Benedict's in Philadelphia from before 1969.
Is that right?
Yeah, if they remember me. So I don't know if that's part of some kind of reminiscent thing I'm going through.
I do the same thing. Look, I didn't
weird.
graduate from State College Senior High. I moved away the last year. My dad said, look, we got to get you out of here. You've been getting into too much trouble. Yeah. It was like every other weekend I was going in front of the magistrate, and he always got me off. And he said, well, why don't we just move down to Jersey Shore? And then we moved into Warrington, and I ended up graduating from CB East by the skin of my teeth. But I always considered myself a graduate of State College because that's where I spent my whole life. And I knew a whole lot of people from there. So, I go to the reunion stuff, and, well, I haven't in a long time now, but I go to them anyway. And they don't know that I did. They don't think, oh, yeah, you didn't actually graduate with us. But I don't really care. I
don't know if they would have remembered if I graduated with them or not. I think they probably know.
Yeah.
I feel like a poser.
Yeah. In a good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, life is good today. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Well, we're coming up on our last hard break, and I'm going to light my cigar. The pause that refreshes. And before we do, I want to remind everybody that the Rally for Common Sense is coming up next month. That'll be on May 19th. That's out in Missouri. You can go to rallyforcommonsense.org. And Kim Parrish has put this all together. And this is an event that you want to get behind. It was given the nickname by local Tea Party groups who have held small events there since 1910. This farmland nestled in the rolling hills of mid-Missouri provides a perfect setting for this unique event. It's conveniently located just 6 minutes north of Jefferson City and within easy driving of 2 airports. It naturally lends itself to barefoot patriots pursuing life, liberty, and happiness. The sun and blue skies above us, our feet planted firmly on the ground. So go to rallyforcommonsense.org and you can still get tickets. There's still some left. They're only $10 a piece. I got mine. Also, I want to remind everybody to go to the donate button and make a contribution to North Star Radio. Help keep the music that you've been enjoying and the programming that's been free alive. And I want to also make another announcement that Loving, Caring, Sharing is going to be taking a hiatus. And that is simply because we'll be relocating Loving, Caring, Sharing Studios. We just don't know where. So stay tuned, and we'll bring you all up to speed on that as soon as there's some information to give you. Let's see, Pat. We were during the break. We were talking about a couple of things that maybe we kind of moved over. We didn't really touch on very much. You were talking about your wife. How did you guys meet?
We met. My wife was one of my sister's girlfriends. Believe it or not, when I used to hang out in front of the bar, not that I drank in there, my wife she had a bike like the Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah,
like Toto with a basket on the front. And when she'd come by, we would do the song from the Wizard of Oz. Dun, 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 dun. She would come by on her bike and she'd look at us and laugh, and we'd be in front of the bar. And she says she always liked me.
Oh yeah.
And she was in my sister's wedding.
Okay.
And we went to the wedding rehearsal party and the dinner and all that. And I met her, and we kind of liked each other, kind of hit it off. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the wedding rehearsal party.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think how long I was sober. Probably about a year and a half then.
Okay.
And when they
where was it? Was this down in Ambler?
No, it was in Ambler. It was at the Aloha Inn or something over there.
Okay.
And they served us dinner at the reception, and they gave me beef with some kind of wine sauce on it.
Okay.
And when I tasted the wine sauce, I drank a lot of wine at the end.
Right.
And it tasted like the wine, and kind of set off this mental obsession that I should have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a strange environment, people drinking, and
right.
I remember I turned to my brother-in-law, Ed, who was going to be my brother-in-law, and he knew how I drank and the stuff that I was doing when I drank. And
mm-hmm.
I said, Ed, I'm going to order a drink. And his eyes got big as the saucers on the table, and he said, don't do it here. You're going to drink, don't drink here.
That'll be the end of this party.
This party really get lively then, right? And every time the waitress would come, I kept thinking I'm going to order a drink. She kept saying, do you want something to drink? And I'd say, a Coke, and she'd bring a Coke, and I kept thinking I'm going to order a drink after I get done this one.
Right.
Again, I went out to the phone, dialed the phone, got to the last number, hung up. I couldn't call somebody about my problem.
Right.
Or I'm going to have a drink.